everyone, I am Sana and welcome to today's lecture which is about addictions counseling. The topic will be covering following objectives. First, concept of addiction counseling. Second, psychological models of addiction counseling. Third, getting help for addiction. Fourth, some risk factors for addiction. Fifth, treatment for addiction. Sixth, how to help someone struggling with addiction. Last and the seventh objective is role of counselor in addiction recovery. So, let us start with the concept of addictions counseling. Addiction counseling means using a special skill to help someone with addictions as well as their families and friends overcome their addictions. This is done by investigating the disease and all of its effects, looking at attitudes and feelings, thinking about potential solutions, and making decisions that are specifically related to addiction. Addiction counseling includes evaluation and assessment, treatment, including the preparation of a treatment plan, crisis, intervention, referral, record keeping, and clinical consultation directly connected to addiction. Addiction counseling also encompasses autonomous practice, the diagnosis of substance use disorders, and the treatment of those disorders at the clinical level of licensing. A process called addiction counseling entails a therapeutic exchange between a client who is battling alcoholism, drug addiction, or abuse and a counselor or a therapist who has received special training to deal with such problems. Addiction counseling includes but is not limited to screening and, as indicated, referral to or consultation with an appropriately licensed healthcare practitioner consistent with the client's needs. It also includes awareness and application of the counselor's own qualifications and scope of practice. Let us now discuss the psychological model of addiction counseling. The disease model holds the view that addictive behaviors are impacted by a variety of physiological, psychological, social, and cultural factors and try to explain the processes by which they exercise their influence. The classical and operant models of conditioning as well as the social learning theory have been some of the most prominent theories in this field. The mechanisms of conditioned or unconditioned stimuli and responses, which are the foundation of classical conditioning, are used to explain how neutral stimuli might eventually lead to responses that were previously only explained by unconditioned stimuli. Operant condition's main tenet is that behavior is influenced by what happens next. The key idea is reinforcement, which is a positive when a behavior increases because a pleasant consequence exists, and negative when a negative consequence does not exist and causes a behavior to increase. Drinking, for instance, can be both favorably and negatively reinforced by the presence of withdrawal symptoms as well as by the emotions of relaxation or sociability that alcohol induces. Instead, punishment is used when a behavior's consequences make it less likely to occur in the future. The concepts of classical and operant conditioning are included in social learning theory, but they are expanded to incorporate cognitions. The key idea here is self-efficacy, or a person's assessment of his or her capacity to carry out a specific activity in a specific circumstance. When self-efficacy is low, a person may experience worry and either avoid doing the activity or do so with minimal effort. When self-efficacy is high, the exact opposite will occur. According to this theory, people drink or take drugs because they do so in a way that reinforces their behavior. A number of unfavorable effects will start to accumulate as such use increases, but these are likely to be overlooked in favor of the even more immediate benefits. The conflict can be resolved by altering either the behavior or the cognitions associated with it, depending on the level of self-efficacy, but the balance will continue to move. The addict is no different from anyone else in terms of psychological mechanics, and addictive behaviors are regulated by the same rules as any other behavior. Therefore, it is reasonable to see non-substance addictions as being on par with substance ones. This is another effect of this viewpoint. A variety of appetitive behaviors that might become excessive are described by Orford. These consist of eating, having heterosexual relationships, and gambling. The pharmacological activity of a substance is then viewed as simply one form of reinforcer. The rewards of these behaviors can be just as strong and quick as substance use. Peel asserts that, regardless of their source, humans become dependent on intense events that alter mood and sensation. Now, we will be talking about how to obtain help for addiction. In some cases, the negative effects of addiction may not become apparent until the affected person goes through a crisis, such as when the addictive behavior or substance is suddenly no longer available. However, there are those who will be able to start their recovery well before the issue reaches a crisis point. This is often what drives people to seek therapy. Even though some people can overcome their addictions on their own, many others will need support in the form of specialized addiction therapy. The recovery process will typically be more successful the earlier the person seeks treatment. Usually, talking to someone about how you're feeling is the first step in getting help for addiction. You may not feel comfortable talking to friends or family if you have an addiction, but you should know that there are a lot of different services out there. If you have any questions regarding your addiction or the next measures you should take, you might also want to think about seeing your doctor. Many therapies claim to be successful in assisting patients in kicking their addictions. But since every person is unique, treatments are customized for each person and their specific addiction. In order to promote abstinence and aid people in managing the emotional and physical effects of their addiction, most addiction treatments combine medicine with talking therapy. Self-help groups and follow-up visits may also be a part of treatment, which is intended to help patients manage triggers and urges. Some therapies which are most beneficial in addiction counseling are: first is cognitive behavior therapy. It is frequently used in addiction counseling because it enables clients to recognize harmful behaviors and transform them into positives. Cognitive behavior therapy aids in addressing any underlying issues that frequently coexist with an addiction. This is crucial in assisting the person in understanding the root of their problems and in taking the necessary action to deal with them. In a sense, counseling offers a new approach for those struggling with addictions to think, feel, and act by removing the disturbed thinking and assisting them in seeing challenging circumstances in a new light. Second is dialectic behavior therapy. It is a form of talking therapy based on cognitive behavior therapy that has been modified to assist those who experience emotions very strongly. By letting people feel, recognize, and accept their challenging emotions, dialectic behavior therapy aims to teach them how to regulate these emotions. While it is primarily used to treat problems related to borderline personality disorder, it is increasingly being employed to address a variety of other difficulties. More information about dialectic behavioral therapy is provided by counselor Claire Sainsbury. She says that dialectic behavior therapy aims to assist individuals in gaining greater control over their thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. When a person is struggling with an addiction of some kind, unhealthy thought patterns can easily become overwhelming and overpowering, impacting thoughts and behavioral tendencies. In order to help you learn to quieten your mind and have more control over what happens as a result of a thought, dialectic behavior therapy incorporates the practice of mindfulness. You might have more control over what happens next if you can develop the ability to notice the ideas you're thinking as if you are apart from them. Now, we are going to discuss some of the known risk factors that can make someone more vulnerable to addictions. First one is genetics and family history. The likelihood of developing an addiction is considerably increased by a family history of drug or alcohol abuse, which raises the possibility that addictions may have a hereditary component. Second is traumatic experiences and stress. Childhood trauma and addiction are closely related, and being abused, neglected, or going through other difficult times dramatically increases a person's likelihood of becoming addicted in the future. High levels of stress are associated with an increased likelihood of problematic drug and alcohol use even later in life. Third is early exposure and experimentation. Persons' likelihood of later developing a drug or alcohol problem increases if they are exposed to drugs and alcohol while they are young, especially if they have previously experimented with drugs. Fourth one is access to drugs. Additionally, living near a lot of drug dealers increases the likelihood that one may become addicted. It may also cause one to adopt more welcoming or tolerant attitudes than someone who has less access to drugs. Fifth is personality and psychological makeup. Additionally, a person's personality and psychological makeup can make them more susceptible to addiction. A person may experiment with drugs more frequently and carelessly if they are by nature more impulsive or thrill-seeking. And the last is brain structure and development. Some persons may be more susceptible to acquiring an addiction because of an undeveloped prefrontal cortex. Teenagers and young adults may also be more susceptible to acquiring addictions because this area of the brain continues to grow well into early adulthood after adolescence. While addiction does cause particular alterations to the way the brain is wired, including the growth of reward circuits, this damage can still be repaired. In fact, scientists now recognize that the brain may adapt to our behavior even as adults. By abstaining from drugs or alcohol for an extended length of time, people who have established addictions can alter the circuitry in their brains in ways that lower their risk of addiction. Although recovering from addiction can be a challenging and non-linear process that involves many tries and errors, getting treatment can greatly increase the chances of succeeding. Now, let me bring your attention to another objective, which is treatment of addiction. Regardless of the severity of the disorder, a person with a substance use disorder can effectively eliminate their symptoms and put their condition into remission with the right treatment. The suggested course of treatment may vary depending on how severe the illness is. For example, more serious addictions might need both inpatient care and medication, whereas milder to moderate addictions would only need therapy or outpatient care. Long-term treatment is beneficial for many persons in recovery because substance use disorders are considered chronic in nature and have high rates of relapse. Treatment options range from individual, family, or group therapy to inpatient and outpatient rehabilitation. it is advised to start by speaking with someone who is more aware about the services offered in your neighborhood. In many cases, a primary care physician, a psychiatrist, a social worker, or a therapist would be the first point of contact. In other circumstances, a person may speak with their insurance provider to learn more about the medical procedures that are covered by their insurance policies. Once engaged in a treatment program, a person can start acquiring the abilities and tactics required to reclaim control over their lives and start undoing some of the harm caused while they were abusing. This approach frequently includes recognizing the dangers and factors that lead to relapse, mastering techniques for overcoming urges, and establishing routines and behaviors that promote a better way of life. The membership in recovery communities or organizations like Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous can frequently help persons in long periods of remission stay sober. Now, we will be talking about how to help someone who is struggling with addiction. The effects of addiction extend beyond the person who has a substance use disorder to include the person's family and close friends. It can be difficult to know how to aid a loved one who is fighting addiction, and in some cases, the conventional methods of assistance may not be effective. Try these approaches if you are attempting to help a loved one who is abusing drugs or alcohol. First approach is express concern. Even though it can be awkward, there are instances when you must face a loved one on such a delicate matter. Remaining in denial about their substance usage and the issues it is bringing is made simpler when you don't accept the situation. When using, it's common to feel enraged at the other person for anything they said or did, but try to refrain from letting this anger dominate your conversation. Instead, make an effort to approach the individual with compassion and worry, expressing your concern and care for them. This tactic is more likely to succeed because it won't set off their defenses as much. Second one is be open to therapy. Having loved ones participate in a person's recovery is really beneficial. Many treatment programs involve a person's loved ones in the healing process and may provide conjoint therapy sessions where you can attend. A terrific method to demonstrate emotional support is to offer to do so before your loved one decides to get treatment. By demonstrating to them that you are not merely asking them to get help but are also willing to take part in this process, you may be able to lessen their defensiveness. Third is, don't shield them from natural consequences. Addicts frequently contact family members and friends to seek for money, favors, or assistance in mending some of the harm that addiction has done to their lives. While it may be tempting to offer support in whatever way we can, doing so occasionally backfires by enabling the user and making it simpler for them to continue using. When they beg for assistance, it can be painful and difficult to refuse them, but it may be important to stop saving them and let them deal with some of the natural repercussions of their actions. These unavoidable outcomes are significant because they frequently push people to seek assistance. The fourth approach is distance yourself when necessary. You might need to limit your interactions with someone who is battling with an addiction while they are abusing, since you can't trust them. You may need to take an action to protect them as well if there are other persons who are more likely to be harmed or taken advantage of by the offender, such as an elderly person or youngsters. Even while it hurts to have to take these actions against someone you care about, keep in mind that when they are using, they are not the person we know and love. Maintain these precautions until the broken trust has been repaired. Coming to the fifth approach, which is don't forget about yourself. You can neglect your own needs if you prioritize the sentiments and concerns of your addicted family member. Making yourself a priority and acknowledging your own wants and feelings is crucial during the healing process. Keep in mind to schedule time for both taking care of the things for which you are accountable and taking care of yourself. In some situations, it could be beneficial to join a support group or think about seeing a therapist to work through some of the emotions and additional stress brought on by their addict. Addiction is a chronic illness that goes through remission and relapse cycles. Addiction progresses without therapy or participation in recovery counseling and can cause impairment or even early death. Now, let us talk about another objective, which is the role of counselor in addiction recovery. For people recovering from eating disorders, drug and alcohol problems, gambling, addictions, and other behavioral concerns, substance abuse counselors offer a crucial support system. Counselors help patients on their path to addiction treatment by developing a relationship based on trust and offering them the tools, support, and judgment-free advice they need. Following are some of the techniques. Number 1 is create therapeutic alliance with patients. The assistance that counselors in this sector provide to addicts with crisis and long-term addiction management concerns can range from rapid medical intervention to long-term recovery support. It takes a lot of trust between patients and their counselors to make the difficult decision to seek addiction treatment. Counselors should therefore be careful to establish a strong therapeutic connection with their patients. When patients feel comfortable enough with their therapist to be open and vulnerable while working through their problems, a therapeutic relationship is established. These kinds of powerful alliances ensure that clients have confidence in their counselors and recognize that they have their best interests at heart. In spite of suffering, this makes it possible for patients and counselors to work together. Patients should feel eventually comfortable speaking freely during sessions, find relief after appointments, and have a desire to come back. Strong therapeutic alliances can be made by ensuring patients know you are interested in their well-being, attentiveness during sessions, letting patients know you can empathize with their emotions, understanding and communicating the foundational issues at play in recovery. Therapeutic alliances are a key factor to addiction recovery. By creating an environment where patients feel comfortable and welcome discussing their hardships, counselors can better help their clients on the road to recovery. Second technique is encourage patients' recovery. Addiction recovery is challenging because many people who struggle with alcohol or drug usage are unaware of their own patterns of abuse or are reluctant to seek help. Due to counselors' limited ability to influence patients' motivation for change, the motivation of patients in substance abuse treatment is frequently a source of dissatisfaction. By enabling the counselor to elicit and increase motivation and to choose a style that will best match the needs of the client, the counseling community is rethinking current approaches to motivation. The National Center for Biotechnology Information found that the most favored qualities for a counselor were non-possessive warmth, friendliness, sincerity, respect, affirmation, and empathy. These qualities were also recommended in the general psychological literature. Contrarily, confrontational counseling that involved pressing the client and engaging in debate and refutation had the opposite effect. A According to the study, clients drank more alcohol when confronted more frequently. Although the patient ultimately controls change, counselors can modify their approach to assist clients remain motivated at each stage of their recovery. The counselor's responsibilities go far beyond merely listening, instructing, and giving counsel. Instead, it is the counselor's job to assist patients in identifying harmful behaviors, support their rehabilitation, and provide them the motivation to take action and change behaviors. Third technique is help patients develop a relapse prevention plan. A significant portion of people with addiction will relapse at some point during their treatment because addiction is a chronic disease. According to some studies, 40 to 60% of addicts relapse at some time in their lives, which is comparable to several well-known diseases including diabetes, asthma, and hypertension. Relapse, however, is not a sign that a treatment is ineffective. Rather, it shows that a patient may benefit from different treatments. Recovering from addiction after deciding to seek addiction treatment, it's critical that individuals are well prepared to prevent relapse in the future. Relapse prevention takes more than just the ability to resist temptation when it presents itself, and prevention must begin early in the healing process. One of the counselor's key responsibilities is creating a thorough relapse prevention plan. Plans will be tailored to the needs of each individual patient, but essential elements include a detailed account of the patient's experience with substance abuse, including previous relapses, warning signs and ways patients can best manage them, a detailed list of family, friends, and counselors that can be used as a support network, an emergency relapse plan, specific lifestyle changes that patients can do to prioritize their well-being. Coming to the fourth technique, which is meet with family members to provide guidance. One of the most challenging components of supporting loved ones in recovery for family and friends of patients is dealing with the addiction. Inadvertently, contact with loved ones on a regular basis might support the addict, and many family members decide to ignore the issue out of concern that their loved ones would be alienated by the confrontation. As a result, it's critical that family members receive adequate information on how to manage their loved one's addiction during addiction therapy. Counselors can assist patients' families in a number of ways, such as by facilitating family therapy sessions or by assisting them in finding a support group. In order to overcome addiction, friends and family support is crucial. Having supportive family members who are aware of the process is crucial because healing is a lifelong journey. Family members that are knowledgeable about addiction treatment can significantly improve the chances of success during the process and, in some situations, can aid in holding addicts accountable. Counselors for substance misuse can provide support for the arduous path ahead and assist families in understanding the complicated route to recovery. The fifth technique is refer patients to outside support group. For those overcoming addiction, there are numerous outside services that, when used in conjunction with counseling treatment, are helpful. As a counselor, recommending clients to organizations like Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous might provide further outside assistance. By attending meetings, patients will be surrounded by people from similar backgrounds and can further share their stories, insights, and difficulties in a non-judgmental setting. These community-based programs give those seeking rehabilitation an additional degree of accountability. More than simply guiding an addict through treatment is part of the counselor's job in addiction recovery. Counselors must be deeply compassionate individuals who are passionate about forming bonds with their patients. Counselors are crucial in the recovery from addiction because they offer a secure environment where patients can openly discuss their addiction difficulties, walk family members through the process, and discuss strategies to prevent relapse. To conclude, we can say addiction is less about giving up something and more about gaining something. That something is a more meaningful, authentic, and connected life. Addiction takes things, recovery gives them back, including self esteem, love for and from self and others, meaning, passion, ability to deal with life's challenges, healing, and hope. That brings us to the end of today's lecture. Thanks for watching.